Can you imagine an object with a mass of about 100 trillion suns? Comparing it to our star doesn't help at all to grasp the monstrous size of this star cluster, which is called Abell C1 1063. It was discovered relatively recently by James Webb, once again proving that the significant amounts invested in the development of this project were not spent in vain. Hubble, subscribe. The discovery of such a massive object makes it possible to understand how gravitational lenses work, to find out what Abell S1063 is, and to get this photograph. James Webb had to observe one area of the sky for 5 whole days, something that had never happened before in the history of observations, for a telescope to focus on a single object for that long. Fortunately, James Webb is equipped with the best modern equipment, including a highly sensitive infrared camera. So what do we currently know about the supercluster Abell S1063? It is located in the constellation Grus, at a distance of about 4.5 billion light-years from Earth. According to recent data, this cluster contains 51 galaxies, but these are only the confirmed objects. There are believed to be more than 400 unconfirmed ones. So this huge mass acts as a cosmic lens, distorting and magnifying light from distant galaxies. The cluster has not been observed for the first time. Several years ago, it was studied by the Hubble Space Telescope as part of the Frontier Fields program. However, James Webb provided more detailed and clearer images taken with NIRCam. It's worth saying a little about this unique research tool. The near-infrared camera is a service instrument of the James Webb Telescope. It is this camera that can accurately detect regions of active star formation and discover exoplanets no matter how far away they are. Why is that? NIRCam, how does it manage to do that? First and foremost, it's thanks to its design. The camera is specifically built to capture images that are hidden from direct observation, such as galaxies or stars shrouded in clouds of dust. Another important feature is the presence of coronagraphs that block out the excessively bright light of stars, allowing the camera to detect faint objects near them, such as exoplanets. The camera is also equipped with a spectroscope, which not only allows us to see the object, but also to analyze its spectrum, determining the temperature of the observed star or planet, its velocity, chemical composition, and redshift parameters. NIRCam operates in 2 ranges, which expands the functionality of the instrument, and the camera is also equipped with a set of filters that help study different types of objects. Interestingly, this instrument can function satisfactorily at extremely low temperatures. The detectors operate at -233 degrees, which is an important aspect in the conditions of the cosmic vacuum. That's why James Webb achieves unprecedented success and keeps discovering new and new sensations. Its camera's attentive lenses miss nothing. Nothing. Like Harry Potter can pass through dust walls and reach the truth. What scientific value does a gravitational lens hold for astronomers? Studied by the telescope, just like an ordinary lens gathering dust in the top drawer of your desk, it magnifies objects many times over, allowing us to see even those that the most sensitive optics couldn't previously detect. That means we'll be able to observe galaxies we never even dreamed of studying. For example, those that appeared almost immediately after the Big Bang. Why are scientists so interested in closely observing gravitational lensing? The thing is, this amazing phenomenon is indirect evidence of the existence of dark matter, substance that we can't see, but it reveals itself through its tremendous gravity and mass. As for the Abell S1063 cluster, after the data obtained from James Webb's observations, astrophysicists are confident that the structure is in the process of merging several galactic clusters, meaning the period of the cluster's existence that we're observing now is quite active. The confidence that this assumption is correct is reinforced by studies from the Chandra telescope, which have detected very bright radiation in this area, confirming the presence of merging processes. What other details attracted the attention of astrophysicists during the observation of the Abell 1063 galaxy cluster? Maybe this amazing sound. Or perhaps the stunning effect called the Einstein ring. In this case, the second is correct, although the first one most likely also takes place. In such an ancient, distant location, there is almost certainly something frightening and mysterious hidden, capable of making such sounds. However, let's get back to the scientific assumptions. Einstein arcs are a vivid effect of gravitational lensing, which the famous scientist predicted in his theory of relativity. These arcs appear as bright, elongated streaks or rings of light produced by very distant galaxies. The effect is a curvature of space-time, predicted many years before we saw it with our own eyes. That is, it's important to understand that Einstein arcs are not physical objects, but rather an optical effect that allows us to study incredibly distant galaxies, which would be very dim without this gravitational bonus. So does this mean we've finally reached an era when theoretical predictions are coming to life and are available for observation? The very first effect predicted by Albert Einstein was checked a long time ago, and we make adjustments for it in satellite navigation systems. We're talking about gravitational time dilation. The most striking example is falling into a black hole. However, there are less traumatic ways to prove the existence of this effect, such as the Halfo-Keating experiment, which demonstrated the reality of the twin paradox. As part of it, in the fall of 1971, the scientists whose names the experiment bears made a round-the-world trip with cesium atomic clocks on board an airplane. Then, they compared the chronometer readings with the stationary clocks at the United States Naval Observatory. As a result, the stationary clocks ran faster compared to the traveling ones. This effect is necessarily taken into account in navigation systems. Otherwise, there can be no talk of accurate geolocation positioning. And these are just two confirmed scientific predictions. Can you imagine what awaits us in the future? Do you want to drink the elixir of eternal life, or entrust your body upgrade to nanorobots? To see all this with your own eyes? Let's move on. The discovery of the Abell S1063 cluster, with its stunning gravitational effect, is just the tip of the iceberg. But what was found through lensing not only surprises, but also inspires awe. Meet the galaxy MOMZ 14, currently the oldest one discovered. James Webb measured its redshift parameters, and it turned out that the object's age is about 13.5 billion years. That's how long the light from the galaxy has been traveling to us. And this in turn means that right now, we are observing a star cluster that appeared about 200 to 280 million years after the Big Bang. During the reionization period, everything would be fine, except this was a time when neutral hydrogen was just starting to ionize from energy emitted by the oldest celestial bodies. The appearance of such significant conglomerates, according to existing scientific theories, is impossible. Most likely, the galaxy you see in the photo now is equivalent in size and mass to the Small Magellanic Cloud. The discovery of the object located in the constellation sextans happened quite recently, and once again became possible thanks to the universal tool NIRCam. Before the arrival of James Webb, it was absolutely impossible to see such distant structures, even with the help of gravitational lensing. Judging by the observations, the galaxy is going through a period of active star formation. Perhaps this is another factor that helps us see it. However, the cosmic lens created by the massive cluster Abell S1063 also significantly helped in the discovery of the galaxy MOMZ 14. Without this, such a distant object would be inaccessible for observation, and even more so for study, even with James Webb's state-of-the-art equipment. But the main result is that now we know much more about how and when the torch of our universe was lit. The data obtained require us to update the information we have regarding the evolution of galaxies and the structure of the macrocosm, as well as to develop new conceptual approaches to their study. What is Abell S1063 at the moment? A distant star cluster serving as a gravitational lens. That's what's on the surface, but in reality it's the largest tool for studying the early universe, as well as the hidden properties of dark matter. Perhaps soon we are in for a real cosmological revolution, a radical revision of traditional theories, and the destruction of pillars of physics that once seemed unshakable. In any case, humanity is only at the beginning of the journey, since the period before this was more like laying the foundation of science. But now, with ultra-modern telescopes like James Webb in orbit and operating, an era of more serious observations and realistic predictions is beginning. What inventions and discoveries contributed to the advancement of progress? The invention of the wheel, the discovery of America, the Wright brothers' flights, all of these and thousands of other unmentioned discoveries are undoubtedly important, because it was precisely these that, in a relatively short period by historical standards, brought progress to this point. But if we focus exclusively on the study of space, stars, and planets, then among those mentioned, the Wright brothers' flights are the most relevant to the topic of our video. Why? Because it's only been 121 years, and humanity has gone from balloons and gliders to landing a Martian helicopter on the red planet. Today, we will follow its journey from takeoff to landing. In the spring of 2021, for the first time in the history of space exploration, the unmanned helicopter National Aeronautics and Space Administration Ingenuity made a flight in the atmosphere of another celestial body, namely on Mars. This is a very difficult task, considering the enormous difference between Earth's atmosphere and that of Mars. On the red planet, it's not only hard to fly, but even to take off, because the laws of aerodynamics simply don't work with such low air density. That's why the engineers at the space agency had to work very hard to lift the helicopter, which outwardly looks more like an 85 million toy, into the Martian sky. By the way, this project's investment was even lower than some global bestsellers. For comparison, the budget of the movie Titanic was $218 million, and The Martian cost its creators, led by Ridley Scott, $108 million. Yet, there may not have been a more successful investment in space exploration history. Ingenuity more than justified the investment and brought tears to the eyes of dozens of people working on this project. When it perished in the sands of Mars, what dangers threatened the Martian helicopter throughout the mission? The most serious of these were dust storms. On Mars, they are very large-scale and long-lasting. They can cover the entire planet and range from several days to 3 to 6 months. It's hard to withstand such conditions even for a well-equipped rover, not to mention a fragile helicopter. The mission was planned as a training one. The helicopter, delivered to the planet as part of the Mars 2020 program, was unloaded together with the Perseverance rover in the Jezero crater area. After that, the device was supposed to demonstrate its operational capabilities, but in the end, it worked much longer than planned and provided the world with a huge amount of valuable information about the red planet and flights in challenging extraterrestrial conditions. The training takeoffs and landings were successful. For the flight tests, they chose a helipad measuring 10 by 10 meters, which had no rocks, taller than 4 centimeters. To find such a site on another planet, and remotely at that, took quite a bit of effort. With the arrival of the second and subsequent souls, the helicopter began making flights, 72 in total over the course of the mission. That means the helicopter, which was only supposed to take off and land in the Martian atmosphere, worked for 3 long years. What is Ingenuity? It's a small drone, 49 centimeters tall and less than 20 centimeters long. Its weight is also not impressive, 1.8 kilograms, but that's on Earth. On Mars, the device weighed even less, just 680 grams. The flight capabilities of the Martian helicopter are also not very great. The maximum flight range is about 300 meters, and the duration is no more than 3 minutes. The drone is designed to ascend no more than 5 meters. 4 thin supports, like mosquito legs, are made in the form of carbon fiber tubes. Of course, there are 2 cameras and navigation on board, but not the standard global positioning system we're used to. We use this method because Earth is surrounded by a network of satellites, but there aren't that many satellites around Mars. That's why a completely different principle was used here, based on geodetic data, visual odometry, and remote control. The thing is, regular compasses don't work here either because of the unstable magnetic field, and it wasn't possible to place other navigation instruments on board, since that would exceed the payload capacity of the Mars aircraft. What methods of recharging did National Aeronautics and Space Administration specialists choose for this gadget? The helicopter's batteries were charged using solar panels, and later on, this didn't serve very well because during massive dust storms, the surface of the panel was constantly covered by sand drifts. Overall, nearly every step of the mission had more than enough problems. Selected primarily for its microchips, Samsung Galaxy endured all tests and surpassed expectations of both scientists and the public. What else was lying in wait for the small, defenseless device on the inhospitable Mars? The change of seasons on the red planet turned out to be scarier than all the dust storms combined because it made the helicopter freeze badly. This happened on the 427th sol. On that day, the device failed to make contact for the first time, and there was a serious equipment malfunction due to hypothermia. Mars temperatures are anything but resort-like. Their fluctuations can be very significant between day and night. If during the day the temperature rises to 27 degrees Celsius at night, it can drop to negative 133. Moreover, temperature readings vary greatly even over the distance from the surface to human height. Thus, after the device was found, 2 days later, and communication was restored, the programmers had to reprogram the thermal control system so that the heating of the Martian helicopter would start at external temperatures from 15 to 40. What benefit has Ingenuity brought to terrestrial astronomy? First and foremost, it demonstrated that flights in a completely alien environment are possible if their organization is approached with proper professionalism. In particular, the helicopter was tested on Earth in conditions close to those on Mars, and the team of inventors tried to take into account all the possible dangers that the device might face on the red planet. Therefore, the goal was not for the helicopter to send as many pictures to Earth as possible, but it did that as well. Moreover, it landed on Mars not alone, but together with its assistant, the rover Perseverance, which recorded the helicopter's flight with its own camera and also found it when it got lost among the rusty wastelands. Here are the first images taken by the helicopter's cameras, as well as photographs from the rover. And this is what the flying device saw during its 5th flight. In this photo, Ingenuity is resting after its 7th flight. But the most interesting photo is the one above the ridged terrain. It's clear, in color, and shows the Martian panorama quite fully. You immediately want to set such a picture as your computer wallpaper. And here's a photograph taken using aerial photography during the 26th flight. This was a request from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration engineers. They wanted to get photos of the parachutes and fragments of the landing module. The Martian helicopter successfully fulfilled this request. Overall, despite all the inconsistencies, Ingenuity has literally paved the way for new projects that will succeed it. How did the Martian Pioneer helicopter die? What happened to those 2 kilograms of courage, determination, and perseverance? The last flight of the Martian helicopter took place on January 18, 2024. Unfortunately, during landing, a malfunction occurred, causing the aircraft to crash and resulting in irreversible damage to the blades. Here is the last image where you can see the shadow of the damaged part of the helicopter. Why did the disaster happen? And to a device that had flown for more than 2 hours. A result that exceeded the designer's expectations by 30 times, crashed onto the surface of Mars. National Aeronautics and Space Administration conducted a very thorough investigation because the conclusions drawn will help with the more successful development of future ones. So Flight 72 was supposed to be a short vertical hop of 12 meters hovering and descending. But at the 30-second mark, the helicopter landed and shut down. The next communications session showed serious damage to the rotor blades. Why did this happen? The reports indicate a navigation failure, and it was this error that caused the helicopter to crash and break down. The device's disorientation led to excessively high landing speeds, after which the helicopter tipped onto its spinning blades. There was too much stress and they broke. In other words, the craft simply got dizzy. Has the location of the victim been found? The crash site? The Perseverance helicopter found it on February 4, 2024, and took a photo of it at exactly 13:05 Martian time. Do you think this is the end of the story or just the beginning? The first swallow demonstrated that flying in the Martian atmosphere is quite possible, despite the huge differences from Earth's conditions. Therefore, a year after the completion of the experimental mission, National Aeronautics and Space Administration inventors presented the concept of Ingenuity's successor, the Mars Chopper. It will be much larger than its predecessor, about the size of an SUV. It has a total of 6 rotors with 6 blades each, making 36 blades in total. During development, absolutely all the mistakes and inaccuracies made during the construction of the first helicopter will be taken into account. Teddy Sinites, the project manager, said this at the briefing. The Mars Chopper will be able to fly not just 300 meters, but much farther, up to 3 kilometers. Of course, the helicopter's capabilities have been greatly expanded. The device will explore vast areas of Mars, even places where no rover has ever reached. The project is in the early stages of development, and we hope that the engineers and designers will succeed. Thanks to Ingenuity, there is no doubt about it, because it was the one that opened new horizons for future missions to the Red Planet. Titan is not only the largest moon of Saturn, but also the second largest in the solar system. Its diameter is about 5,150 kilometers, making it second only to Ganymede in size. What makes Titan special is that its surface has many lakes which create a hydrological cycle similar to Earth's. That's why we could witness an incredibly beautiful view on the moon. It might even be much more stunning than on Earth. However, Titan has one unique feature. Its lakes are not filled with water, but with liquid methane. And what would happen to you if you decided to take a swim there? First, we need to get to Saturn's moon. It's not a short journey. We still have to cover 1.2 billion kilometers. That's just 7 years of traveling through space. This clearly tells us that we need to plan the mission in detail, taking all risks into account. Of course, before that, we'll need to rack our brains to make sure we have enough supplies and oxygen. However, the incredible view of the giant Saturn is definitely worth it. With its massive rings and diverse moons, including Titan, it looks amazing. We shouldn't linger here. There's just a little bit left until we reach our destination, and I have to say, seeing Titan up close is truly a pleasure. It not only has a vast system of lakes and rivers, but also a very dense atmosphere that causes periodic rainfall. Moreover, Titan is truly enormous. It's even bigger than Mercury. Now that you've made it all the way to Titan, it's time to land. It's worth mentioning that the descent itself will take more than 2 hours. On top of that, when landing, it's easy to end up right in liquid methane. That's why, before landing on Titan, you need to study its surface to choose a suitable spot. But if we've managed to successfully land on Titan, let's see what we actually have here. And, surprisingly, the conditions here are quite comfortable considering, of course, all the circumstances. The atmosphere of this world is 95% similar to Earth's, but it's not time to take off the spacesuit yet. The remaining 5% is deadly methane, methane lakes, a methane atmosphere, and even methane rains. Rain on Titan is also quite an interesting phenomenon. It seems like it's happening in slow motion, again because of the gravity. For comparison, on the satellite, the speed of falling raindrops reaches 1.6 meters per second, while on Earth it's as much as 9 meters per second. Yes, it turns out that a person can't breathe on their own in such conditions. And it's also way too cold here. This is definitely not a hot world. Due to its distance from the sun, the temperature is around minus 180 degrees Celsius. That's why you would need to wear a protective suit to take a walk near one of the lakes. As a nice bonus, you could run and jump with little effort, thanks to gravity. Now let's get to the main point. We think you understand perfectly well that diving into an ocean of methane is far from a pleasant activity. First, you would turn into an icicle because of the extremely low temperatures. Second, even a spacesuit wouldn't save you, since it would most likely get damaged by the temperature, and the methane would react with the oxygen from your tank. The result would be like a real fire inside the spacesuit. And that's not even the worst part. Movement on Titan is slowed down not only on the surface, but also in the lake. It's impossible to swim quickly there, which means that while trying to get out, you would lose precious minutes and most likely you would die. Diving into a methane lake on Titan is both an amazing and very dangerous activity. This is a place where the fantastic landscapes are mixed with hidden dangers. The temperature, which makes everything around freeze, creates an attractively frightening landscape. Imagine standing on the shore of a methane lake, gazing into its mirror-like surface. The air around you is piercingly cold, and from the sky, covered with thick clouds, methane droplets fall frighteningly slowly. This is an amazing world where every step could be your last. Our journey to Saturn's moon would be a test not only for our technology, but also for human resilience. Here, our dreams of space exploration collide with harsh reality. A methane lake on Titan is a kind of symbol of our drive toward the unknown, toward those boundaries where space still keeps its most intimate secrets. For now, we can only dream about such journeys. For now, there are many mysteries before us, and finding the answers to them is not so easy. And what do you think? Will we ever be able to travel to Titan? Will we be able to see the beauty of this dangerous and alien world with our own eyes? If you found this video really useful, don't forget to let us know and give it a thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you can be among the first to know about new episodes. We have many more encounters with different mega superplanets ahead, and comments with the hashtag #WatchingHubble will appear in the next video.